Good afternoon to our next webinar. Today we are going to talk about fully automated JovianDSS single node cluster and test it. So sometimes if you are not very fast in using our GUI, you may spend hour or even more to configure the cluster. But with script this is possible probably in 5 till 10 minutes. So let us go to our agenda. So today we are going to introduce the so-called Jovian API tools, which are available to download on the GitHub. We will show what we are going to set up, so the demo cluster. I have a chart also prepared, so we will explain what we are doing, and then a live testing, but of course a setup as well. So first of all, we want to introduce the tools. So you will just go to a browser, and in the browser you can just watch, or maybe I can find it here also, the browser. Just type GitHub jdss, okay, sorry, okay, so we are finding tools. That was easy. So just GitHub and JDSS you will find, and there is a help here how to use every single command. There are plenty of commands available already. Anyway, the tools are developed, so we are adding new stuff. And if you want to run easy under Windows, you can download the exe. So click on the exe and click on the download button, right? So after downloading, I have a tool and I can move it to my local directory. I was moving this to API directory, right? So maybe I delete this, okay. One file is open, so that's why I cannot read. So that's my tools I was downloading today, and then we can just run to start to see how it works. So, but as at this moment I have a test running, so I will stop the test and just try it. So I will just J and tabulator. So when I run, I just have an answer. I need arguments, okay. But if I want to get the help, I just type -h or double minus help, and I can get the help of the tools, right? So that's, as you see, plenty commands. Very practical commands are tools which are on the beginning, they are cloning a certain zvol or data set and making them available. So people are using these to move the data to tapes of, or some other repositories, mostly to the tapes. Okay, so that's the tools. Today we will show how to make automation using these tools. There are few recent commands which are creating the factory setup files and batch executing these files, right, in batch, so I can have more files executed. Of course you can run your script in DOS box or as a batch file or in PowerShell and use all these commands, but we have also made the option to pack more commands into the file and run these files in the sequence. So I'm going to demonstrate this, but before of this I have cluster setup, which was I was just stopping this, so I can make a cleaning work. Okay, so this one is just starting. Okay, so before it is started, I will be just showing the cluster environment. That's what we have prepared today. So we will be using two node Jovian nodes, so node A with ETH01, and that will be the ring, so ping and ring together in active backup bond. Then we will have ETH2 and 3 for storage export, and that will be iSCSI. And we will have the two pools, pool 0 and the pool 1. On pool 0 we will have a virtual IP in subnet 2100 and the 3100. And on the second pool 2200 and 3200. So two pools exported over ETH2 and 3. And metro cluster, so advanced metro cluster mirror path on ETH4 and 5. Okay, in our setup here we on the chart we show round robin, but in our setup we will be using active backup because in virtual environments round robin makes problems, and I'm running both machines as virtual machines. Okay, here we show also 6 clients which will be not using. Here we'll just set up the cluster and maybe copy some file to see how it works, right? So that's our go-to. In order to set up such cluster, there are few steps. Of course, you need to set up the IP addresses, you need to create the bonds, you need to make set the host name nice, then set up the time from internet, then bind the cluster and the ping nodes, make a mirroring path, start the cluster, create the pools. In pools you need to create the virtual IPs and then create some cluster resources like NAS volumes or iSCSI targets with volumes. And of course you need to test it with like move or reboots, right? So there is a lot of work, and this work can be automated, and I will just show how to do it. So we will have to make some clean work because I was working on this. So let's say delete the pools. We have two nodes which you see now they are in full setup, HA node A with 80 and node B with 81, right? So exactly as on our chart. Okay, so I will be deleting both pools. By the way, the script is developed in Python, a scripting language. So if you want to also write or change something, you will need some extra tools. There is the library required and there is a REST API documentation required. So if you want to also develop the script, let us know, then we will provide you the missing tools, right? Okay, now I will delete the second pool. I will show you everything was configured here also by script. So I have a virtual IP, and I have a shares, and I have iSCSI, maybe iSCSI targets. And on the second one it was no on the first one, which I was deleting already. So let me delete this as well. Okay. Good. Okay, so as you see, there is a easy script, and this script is developed also by one of our partner here. from Belgium. Okay, so you can be also one of the developers here if you wish. Okay, so we have now cleaned the pools. I have still a cluster set up, so I can disconnect both nodes. And after disconnecting the nodes, I also want to have factory defaults on both nodes. So the clean after installing, there is no setup at all. Because settings, Ethernet and bonding, it takes also time. Good. Both machines now show no cluster configuration. So both machines will just see the local disk. I have a 12 disk in every system, but there is still network configuration. There are still bonding, right? So there are still bonding. There is a time from internet and so on, right? So fresh machine don't have it. So in order to make a 100% clean system, I will go to the Ctrl-Alt-X on console, admin, and the restore factory defaults, right? So this system is rebooting already, and I will go to, so that's the 81. And because the script cannot work on two identical IP addresses, 220, so I will shortly power off this machine, right? Then I will go, so this machine I power off and this machine is on. So same procedure here. I will restore factory defaults. Okay, so we are booting the first machine, and then I will be ready to start with the tools. So again, -H or double minus and help, it's the same. You will just display the help, right? With the help, here I have some files. Okay, I will delete this file as well. And the history, it was just the history of the commands. So you see, when I show here, there is only jdss API-tools exe and my old history commands. Okay, so when I want to make a batch file, then will be, of course, also time consuming to prepare some file. So the tool is also making this for you. So I can say copy this command, create factory setup files, and my help also using exactly the same IP addresses, so which I'm using in our demo. So that's the 080 and 081. Of course, you can put your own IP addresses and the script will generate exactly the files as you expected. If you put one, it will be generating for single node. If you put two nodes, then it will be generating for your cluster nodes, right? So I'm generating the script, and what happened? Now, when I show here, I have already setup files, right? So that's the single node for the node 80. Single node 80, okay, as you see, there are plenty commands, and in my case, the hash is used for commands, so all these, the bigger ports are commented. I'm using only ETH0, ETH1, and ETH0 I'm sending to 220, right? Because this is a fresh. And then I'm setting new IP, which is 80, and next the node I'm sending always to 80, right? So that single node has a bond on ETH0, ETH1, has a bond on ETH4 and 5. As I told you, this is also active backup here. You can put round robin if you put balance RR, right? Also set the host name, server name, set the time zone. If you are in America, you will switch to the New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, and then printing the info. So that's the node 80, and node 81, you see, all these addresses are 81, everything as expected, right? So let us try it. To try this, to try the setup, I need to maybe enter the help one more time, and maybe use this one of the example, which is batch setup files, and this API setup on node 80, 81, and set up the cluster, right? Okay, so I can copy this and try to start it. So when I'm starting this, it is expecting the one of node to be 220, and this node should have the REST API activated. So when I go to 220, this is the first node which is booted with factory defaults. Then I will just go to the GUI and enable REST API. So admin accept and system settings and enable REST API. I put default username admin and default password admin. This is why my commands are shorter, right? So you see, at once when I was putting the REST API, it is already sending a request to this machine and changing the IP, right? So here, very soon, this machine will be no more available. So now I can boot the second machine. So the second machine is booting now. Okay. And by meantime, the first machine is already on 80. We can check, right? Because by meantime the IP was changed, right? So when I go to the system settings network, we can see that already the IP are just changed. Of course, by meantime the bond will be set and so on, right? So we can see what is going now. So the bonding is just setting, creating the bonds. Takes some time, of course. I will put it on side. Okay. So the first node is done, you see. When I go to first node one more time, and the network, you see we have bond 0, we have bond 1, we have a default gateway, we have a server name, right? And then we have a time from NTP, right? So everything is already set for the single node here, right? So now the batch is running the second file, and the second file is also want to send the 220 because this is a default IP address. And the second node is booted by meantime, so I can prove it. 81, you see, just booted with the 220. And the first node, when I go here and F5, click F5 for F5 is refreshing, right, the screen. So that's the node 80, and the node 81, it still has 220, right? So I can now go to 220, that's not, in this case, node 2. Same procedure, set REST API to enabled, and with default username. Okay, so now you see at once when I do it, it is sending the request to the node to change the IP address of this node. Okay, now the node is no more accessible over 220 because the IP was changed by meantime, right? So I can already remove it. And it is already working on the IP addresses of the node B to set up the node B. So we can now log into node B already. Still, node B has no host name. You see there is a random factory default host name. Just to prove, system is manual, you see. So it is the no NTP time, and the network was also, now it's already set. So by meantime, when we just refresh, so the host name is already set, right, by meantime, and that's, we can see here, and the info was showing the progress, what was done, and now it's sending cluster bind. Okay, so when I go to the cluster failover setup, you see it is already starting working on the cluster. Now we'll be sending the ping nodes and the mirroring path, which is still missing. So I have the info that the cluster is bound already on 8081, and now it's sending ping node, and that's 030 at this moment. And we can see here the progress with ping nodes, right? So 2 ping nodes are configured already, and the next step is configuring mirror path, right? That's the case. The mirror path is already configuring. Next step will be starting the cluster, and next step will be creating the pools. Maybe I will show you the commands which are creating the pools in our case. So I will open the set cluster file, because you can edit, of course, and then save under own name, because every time today when you created the files, they are just overwritten, right? So you can, of course, use your own ping nodes, or there is also option to put the ping nodes in the command when you are creating the files. Then it will be changing automatically. But of course, you can open the file and you can change by yourself, edit just and save it, right? So set mirror path on the bond one on both sides, start cluster, and then on the right side we always put the doesn't matter which node of the cluster, first or the second, it will always work. Then create the pool, and we are creating pool 0 with one VDEF only, and we are creating just a mirror, and the mirror with 4 disks, right? So we should expect, because this is metro cluster, that will be 2 local mirror disk and 2 remote mirror disk. Then we are creating virtual IPs, okay, on the pool 0. That's the first virtual IP, which is like this. That's the second virtual IP on the pool 0. and then we are creating pool 1, which is exactly the same as a pool 0, also for disk, with one VDEV. Then we are creating the virtual IPs. Okay, then we create storage resources, which are in this case iSCSI, and I will create 2 iSCSI targets with iSCSI volumes, and then I will on pool 0, and I will create SMB NFS shares with data sets, right? And on the end I will run scrap. I will set also scrap scheduler, and I will make a move, means I will make active cluster, because the pool 0 will stay and pool 1 will be moved on another node, right? So that was the setup cluster file, which is easy to read and easy to modify, right, to your needs. You can have, of course, more bonds and so on, right? By meantime, we see that the cluster was started already, and by meantime, system is already creating the pool 0, right? So the pool 0, which consists of 4 disks, so we are creating only data disk. We are not creating here write log or read cache, which you can add manually afterwards. So the pool 0 is already created. When I go inside, then there will be no virtual IP yet, and there will be no iSCSI target yet, and there will be no shares yet, right? But the script now is already at the stage when it's creating the virtual IP on the pool 0. So by meantime, we see pool 0 has already both virtual IPs, right? So now the script is in the stage of creating the pool 1. It is still creating on the node 80. Okay, same story. There is, of course, nothing inside first. The VIP21 just create 22 in the second pool, and the second will be VIP32, right? Both are created. Looks like it is not refreshing automatically, but after clicking the GUI refreshed. So now the system is setting the iSCSI targets and zvols, right? Same, you need to click in order to refresh. Aha, it is creating on the pool 0. Okay, on the pool 0 is creating. So both targets are created with like automatic name, target 00, target 001, right? Zvol 0001. Okay, and also data set is creating now. So the dataset vol 100 with data 100, right? So we have already a share which we can access. I can go to 80, and then data 100 is already there, and I can maybe already copy some files over there, right? Maybe make a folder and a copy. Okay, maybe copy one bigger file. and maybe make some more data. So I will copy and paste. Okay, it's a plenty copy task. So that will be running something when the scrap is starting, right? So scrap looks like it's starting already because scrap was the scheduled and sending scrap was done. So that's why we have a start and stop time of the scrap, right? So now we see that the script is already on the moving pull 1 to node 81, right? So we can just issue command move, and then it is finding where the pull is active. So it is a cluster command, and it's moving pull to another node, right? So very easy to use. Moving in progress, and after moving, my setup is complete. And then there is one more small script which is test, and it's not testing a lot, but you can of course modify and make some more tests. So that's done. You see we have a pull 0 which has a mirror, as I told you, 2 local disk and 2 remote disk. So that's the metro cluster. I have some iSCSI for some testing already. I can make some performance tests, so use these targets. Or you can set up more targets very easy, just instead of 2, say 10, and you will have 10 targets. Fiber channel is in this auto setup is not done yet, but will be done soon. And the shares, same story. If you want to create more shares, just set that you want to have more. Snapshot, auto snapshots are not done yet. Also will be added soon, right, to the script. Okay, by meantime our script is finished, so I can maybe run help one more time and then pick up here the last command, which was, let's say, send the batch setup, send files, and that's the test file, right? Of course I can write this by myself, which file I want to use. So I say A, and then tabulator is finding all the files in my directory. So I find the test and then double node 192.168.0.80. You can put the first or the second. Anyway, it is sending as is in the test file. So now the system starts to test. So what is in the test by default, of course, we can change it anytime, and we can also, this is a factory test, so we just move pull 1, then we do the scrap, then we do reboot of node A, right? Then we make some move, then we make again a reboot of node A, then we scrap, and then we reboot node B, right? Then we move pull 0, and then we scrap. So just few absolute minimum what is required to prove that the cluster is working, right? So this is this pull is moving from 81 to 80, right? So you also know what kind of command is issued to the cluster at this moment, and you know what to expect, right? So that's the automated setup and automated testing. Let me see if I was copying some files, so when I will scrap, then I will see already some. Yeah, almost 3 giga I was managed to copy on the system, right? So because this testing is just boring, and then you just need to wait, This will be good for your lab time when you run some, let's say, benchmarks, right? This scrub was started from the script, right? And after scrubbing, it will also show us here the scrub statistics, right? So the scrub is just scanning, start time, the rate, and then how percent is done, and so on, right? So all this information you have also on your screen, right? So that was everything. Will be, of course, helping you if you will have some questions or try to develop. Then please contact me or our technical support, and we'll help you with the automated setup. That can save a lot of time and make sure that you will not forget, let's say, set the, this node is rebooting now. So I need to go to the second node, that you will not forget to, let's say, to set the time or to set the scrub schedule or all this stuff, right? Because everything you can put automatically in the script, right? Okay, so we are done with the setup today. It was quite fast. I was planning a bit more than half an hour. And we are done with the time. If you have, again, if you have any questions or if you want to develop, just contact us, we will help you. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today, and I will still running the presentation because I want to show that these tests are done. So I will be stopping the recording and then start the recording on the end when the full test is done. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully you will make another webinar soon, right? Okay, so now we have the situation when both pools are already on node B. So node A is not accessible. Then we have the situation that the REST API is waiting for the pool 8. Okay, so I will pause again. Okay, now next step is when the node A is not available, so both cluster nodes are in unmanaged status and the pools are degraded. And in a failover status, we have the situation that the cluster is running in a separated mode, right? There is the only node in the from the cluster available at this moment, right? Okay, so we wait for the node to come back. So I will pause again. Okay, by meantime, the node came back. So now the next command is already sending failover request. Again, we are sending failover request to 80, but it about pool 0. So pool 0 is moving from 81 to 80, right? So that will take some time. So I will pause again. Okay, that was more than 10 minutes. So now the test batch file is completed, and we see all the commands which were executed and everything completed successfully. So that was all for today. Thank you very much for joining the webinar. Thank you. Bye.